I was going to talk about my vision for the economy for the future. I think you just got it all. So I don't know if I need to talk about all of that, but I'll talk a little bit. I believe this is my third time before the Chamber, so thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is the first time as County Executive, though, and it is always a pleasure to come out here and just talk about what we're dealing with in the community. I see my good friend Mary Holtz, who I sit on the Erie County Industrial Development Agency board with together, the supervisor here, and we're working to create a better IDA system that works for all of the communities of this county, not just the select few who happen to have their own industrial development agency. We'll be getting a little bit more into that later. We need to have a frank dialogue as elected officials with the people of our community at all times, because I think it's important that, that people understand where their elected officials are coming from, because in the end, the elected officials are responsive to their bosses, and those are the voters and the people of the community. And too many elected officials forget that the bosses of them are the voters, the people that sent them into office. And you have to be not only listening to what those individuals have to say, because they are the people that you represent, but you're also accountable to them. And I have people ask me all the time, I say, well, who's your boss? And I look forward to saying to them, you are. And I think it's important that they understand that, because we work on your behalf. That's why they're called public servants, because we do serve the public. Deb talked a little bit about my background. I'm not going to get into it in great detail, other than to say that when I was elected comptroller in 2005, at the time the red-green fiscal crisis was in high gear, and I think everyone, if you were around this area at that point, remembers, Erie County went from having, truthfully, one of the most solvent and best counties and communities in the United States. Former County Executive Dennis Gorski was named by Governing Magazine as the elected official of the year 3 years before the red-green fiscal crisis, or before he was removed from office by the election of Joel Giambra, and within 5 or 6 years thereafter, as being known as the best elected official for any municipality in the country. Erie County was in a huge fiscal crisis in which we went from having a $200 million surplus, $250 million in tobacco settlement, to zero for both of those, and a $140 million deficit. I ran for comptroller because I felt I could bring my experience as a private sector attorney representing not only municipalities but large businesses and doing their finance transactions to the office of comptroller to help clean it up, basically to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and find ways to just run government more efficiently. Because government comes down to two basic questions. The first one is very easy to answer, and everyone will always give an answer, and many different answers on that. And that is, what services do you want your government to provide? The general answer is everything. We want everything possible. We want as many roads, we want as many bridges that are brand new, we want libraries, we want sheriff's road patrols, we want police presence everywhere, you name it, everybody wants it. The second question is the one that's very difficult to answer. What are you willing to pay for it? And that's the discussion that we've had for many years now, is what services does this public want? And what are they willing to pay for it? At the end of the red-green fiscal crisis, Erie County government was cut to such a degree that the public actually said, no, this is wrong. We want more services than that. We don't want to see that sheriffs are not patrolling our roads. We do not want to see that our libraries are getting shut down. We want to see our roads and bridges repaired, not when we have to close them, but on a basis where if they're supposed to be repaired every 10 years, then we're repairing them every 10 years. And I came in with a vision as comptroller of, okay, how do we do this in a tighter financial situation? And that was to find ways to save money, to find ways to run government more efficiently, not necessarily laying off vast swaths of employees, but find ways to take the resources that we have and just use them more efficiently. And I believe I did that as comptroller. It's very difficult sometimes to determine whether you've had a successful tenure, a successful term as an elected official, because there's so many different things you deal with, but I think it comes down to one basic way of doing the analysis. Did you leave the community in better shape than when you took the office? And I believe I can answer that with regards to the comptroller's office as a resounding yes, because Erie County financially was in much better shape. We had stabilized our finances. It took some time, but we did do that. And so that's my same goal as county executive. Will I leave this community in better shape than when I took it? That's what my goal as county executive, is to find a way to ensure that we're leaving our community and the services we provide in better shape and the public feels more comfortable about their government. If things are going well, people shouldn't even be thinking about their government. They shouldn't be sitting there complaining. They should be just saying, hey, things are being done properly. That's the best way. If they're not talking about you, then they're probably doing things right. If they're talking about you, in all likelihood, you're not doing things right, and that's one I try to avoid, is people say, you haven't been in the press lately, and I go, yeah, I like it that way. That means things are going well. Nobody's coming out here complaining. We're actually providing the services that the public wants. When I ran for county executive, not many people gave me a shot. They said, Mark, yes, you've done a good job as controller, but you're running against a guy who's got all this money. I said, well, that money's one thing. What I want to do is talk about my vision for the community, what I think it can be. Because as controller, you find out very quickly that you have the power to identify change. You do not have the power to effectuate it. You do not have the power to actually change the way government runs. Only the county executive has that power. So I ran for controller because I thought that the county was being run in the wrong way. There were things that could have been done better, that should have been done better, that were not. My predecessor and I'll agree, are not the best of friends. But we do agree on some things, we disagree on others. And I think you saw it last year when we ran a race in which it wasn't personal. It was about the issues of what matters to the people of Erie County. And I think the people responded, because I heard it from lots of folks that, yeah, you know you guys are best friends, but you didn't take it to the mudslinging, the nasty level. You focused on the issues, the differences between you. And that's what the public deserves. They don't need the mudslinging. They need a conversation when you're running for office on why you think you can do a better job, and telling not just why you think, but showing examples of how you would do it better. And that's what we've done in these last few months. And I have a different vision of what government is compared to my predecessor. I don't believe government should be run like a business. It should not. Now, speaking before a business organization, a chamber of commerce, you might think, why are you saying that? Because we're businessmen and women in this room. Well, there are differences between government and business. There are many things that the government does that a business would never do because there's no profit to be made. And if anything, there's a loss that's going to be incurred on an annual basis because of the services that you provide. I say to folks who are like, you need to run your highway department more efficiently. Okay, we could do that, but what happens when it snows every day? And we decide to go to such an efficient level that we only have plow drivers available on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and maybe a Saturday if we got some overtime. A business would cut to a degree in some areas so that they only had the basic need to ensure profit. And if you can't ensure a profit in a business, what happens? The business goes out of business. We in government have to ensure that those roads are kept open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, regardless if we're going to make any money on it, because of course we don't make any money on road plowing. And any government is like that, and I'm sure Mary will say the same thing in the town of Cheektowaga. If somebody's, it may be the dead of night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there could be 6 inches of snow that fell in the last half hour, invariably one person will be up driving on that road at that time and complain the next day that that road was not plowed at 2:30 in the morning. Because those are the services that we provide as a government that a business could not provide because there's no profit to be made. We in a government represent people, not taxpayers. We represent the youngest child and the oldest adult, regardless of whether taxpayers in their life. And it was a perfect example of that was unfortunately this past year with the tragic death of Abdi Fatah Muhammad. We represent the youngest child from an abusive parent. We represent the oldest adult who might need assistance putting food on their table. They may not be taxpayers at their time of lives, but we still represent them because they're people in our community that we have to care for. A business, there's no profit to be made. But in a government, we do have to represent those individuals, and I think it's important that we remember that is our purpose, representing the greater community and the people around us. We cannot turn our back on individuals just because there's no profit to be made at that moment with regards to a government. Because we don't know whether we're going to be in that situation ourselves someday or not. It can happen. So at the end of the day, we have to understand that we represent people, we just don't represent taxpayers. And a government cannot be run by like a business, because if it was, the government could not provide the basic services that the public does demand. Last year was a good example of that with the library cuts and the year before. People said, we want our libraries. We want to see our libraries. We guarantee we don't have to go back to the old system, but we need to keep the system we have, and it's a strong system working well. And you see it here in the town of Cheektowaga with the Rhinestein Library, I believe. That's one of the jewels of the system, and it was cut to almost nothing because of a conscious decision of one individual. It wasn't because there was a financial crisis and we had to shut down libraries. It's just one individual didn't value them. And he went out and made a decision I think libraries should be cut, they're getting too much. The public responded, you're wrong, sir. They responded by receiving hundreds and thousands of calls and letters saying, you're wrong, we want our libraries funded. The problem is, as I said, it gets back to the original question. What services do you want and how are you going to pay for them? We know what services the public wants, but you have to be able to find a way to pay for them. And those are the questions that we deal with in government on a daily basis. And that's what I believe as county executive is one of my goals is to ensure that we're returning government to its core mission of providing the programs and services that the public demands, but within the financial constraints that we are faced, which means we need to do it as effectively and efficiently as possible. That requires a balancing out between providing the needed services and having the resources to pay for them. It is a balancing act in government, because on one day we'll be required to pay for one thing that we know we have to, and it's going to have a negative impact on another area of government just because we don't have the financial resources as we'd like. That's what we do in government, but we can do it better. And let me give you an example of something we've done recently to do it better. The prior administration cut daycare subsidy from its traditional 200% of poverty level down to 125% of poverty level. People are like, why should I care about daycare subsidies? It's not a free handout where people just get daycare for free. It is a subsidy. Depending on how much you make, you may have to pay, or you have to pay a significant portion. As businessmen and women, I think it's important for you to know that daycare actually helps you provide your business in more effectively and efficiently, because it gives you the employees that you need to go out there and actually work on your behalf rather than having these individuals staying at home and raising children. We were able to raise the daycare subsidy back up to the 200% traditional level without spending a single local penny, because we were able to leverage state and federal resources that already existed. So we were able to restore the funding level back to what it was. And here's why it matters. This is a critical support system for not only private sector but the public sector by ensuring that children are in safe environments so parents can work during the day. We help those parents remain employed, reducing their need for public assistance. Because if they're not working, they may be on Medicaid and the temporary assistance for needy families or the welfare program. We're helping businesses attract a good workforce so that individuals who do want to work actually are working. And we are injecting into the local economy millions of dollars. Erie County invests $2.1 million in daycare subsidy. People think, wow, that's a lot of money. We're wasting money, but we're not. Because that $2.1 million of daycare subsidy that Erie County invests leverages another $21.8 million of state and local resources. This is how we were able to raise it back to the 200% of the poverty level by using state and local resources. Where is that money going? It's not going outside the area. It's going to employers, daycare providers in Erie County who hire employees, who shop at the Galleria Mall, who buy gas at local gas stations, who go to restaurants. And a recent study by the University of Cornell University, said that for every dollar that's invested in child care, you will see a $2 economic return in your community. So Erie County invests $2.1 million. We leverage state and federal resources to generate approximately another $21 to $22 million, which means in the long run we're investing $48 million in our local economy. And that's all money spent here in Erie County. That's an example of what I believe is a wise investment of governmental resources to not only ensure that we have a workforce that can work for you, the employers of this community, but it's also injecting significant resources into our economy so that everyone else can benefit from it. Another investment that we entered into this year that the prior county executive didn't agree, he thought was worthwhile, and I heard about this from the town of Cheektowaga, but I hear it from other towns too, so it's just not the town of Cheektowaga, is the Rodent Control program. The rats. We have a rat problem in Erie County, and it's not because of any one thing that an individual is doing, primarily because we had a mild winter and an exceptionally hot summer, which is a bad combination if you do not want to have rats. The prior county executive cut the Rodent Control program. It actually was one of the most requested programs last year, even to the extent of being almost up there with libraries. If you have a rat in your yard, you can do one of two things in the past. You could have called an exterminator, or you could have called the public health department. Most people would have called the public health department. The prior county executive said everyone should call it an exterminator. They should take the responsibility of taking care of those rats that are living in their yard. That's wonderful. But if the rat lives on your neighbor's yard, and runs across your yard back and forth and your kids are dealing with it, you cannot hire an exterminator to go onto your neighbor's property and kill a rat. There's only one entity that can do that, and that's the Public Health Division of Erie County, because they're authorized by state law to do it. So we invested a very small amount of money, basically $250,000, to create the rodent control program. And since we did that, we invested the money, we rehired the individuals, got them back. They started doing the rodent control again, basically April 1st. Through September 4th, they received and are responding to over 2,500 phone calls and requests for trapping rats, vermin, and varmints, as I like to call them. Now, that I think is a pretty good value, because if you think about it, unfortunately these pests carry diseases and they truthfully reduce the value of a home. If you're trying to sell a house, and if you're whether in Cheektowaga, Lancaster, Kenmore, Tonawanda, and it's in every community, it's amazing, we have the maps and you see where they are, they're everywhere. You're trying to sell your house, and all of a sudden you have a buyer, a prospective buyer, I love this house, and they see a rat walking down the street or across, you just lost that buyer. That's why it's important. It actually also provides an economic benefit to the greater community by ensuring various reasons, not only the safety of our community, but also the value of homes and businesses. That's one of the first things that will drive down the cost of a house, is if there happens to be a rodent control problem. You can see the numbers based on house sales, where the rats are and where the house sales are, and the values they're getting based on the area. It has an impact on neighborhoods, and that's one of the reasons why we think it's a value as well. There's a lot of things that we do in county government. We're investing in our parks. The prior county executive said the parks were in the best shape ever. Everyone knew they were not. We're not going to go out there and say the parks are in the best shape ever, because truthfully, the park is going to be in the best shape ever the first day it's opened. After that, the park's never going to be in the best shape it was on day one. But we're going to invest in our parks because they're a wonderful resource that we have here. We're doing it all across the county, and the closest park to here in the town of Cheektowaga would be Como Park in Lancaster. And there's quite a number of things that are going on right now. We're renovating the Bowen Grove shelter as well as Lancaster Place building. The gazebo in the middle of the park, where there's a plan to renovate that. It has some serious structural damage and we had to shut it down. It actually was very unsafe. It looks wonderful if you walk up, but when you walk up to it, you see that the bolts are not connected like they should be. We've invested $500,000 this year in our parks. We're going to invest another $1 million on capital improvements in the parks in the next year. Because think about it, we hold the parks in a public trust for future generations. Past generations held those parks in a public trust for us. Why should we let our parks fall apart into complete disrepair and the future generations look at us as the generation that did nothing, to the point where we had to close our parks because they were unsafe to go to? I want my administration guided by not partisanship, but partnership. That's why I'm working with people on both sides of the aisle to resolve the issues that we have here today. Yesterday, I sat down with my usual monthly meeting with the members of the Republican minority of the legislature to hear them out, to talk to them, and find out what are the issues that matter to them and what can we do to fix that. What are the things they're going to bring before the legislature that they want me to approve? That didn't happen under the prior administration. He didn't sit down with majority or minority. We do that on a monthly basis. We sit down with both sides of the aisle to find out what are the issues that they need addressing and what we can do to fix that. We're working with people all across this community to create a better system of government, and also finding ways to address problems that spread across municipal lines, regardless of whether there's a dotted line on that street showing that one area is a city and the next a town. And a good example of that, and someone who really helped me out in the leadership with this as well as Supervisor Holtz, is the creation of the Buffalo and Erie Niagara Land Bank. Distressed houses is one of the housing stock. Buildings is one of the biggest problems we face as a region today. And it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in a village in a very affluent part of the county and there's distressed properties. The same thing with the city and the urban core and the town of Cheektowaga. By working together across party lines, we were able to come and put an application in before the state of New York to receive one of the first 5 land banks. And what we've heard back from the state of New York is no one is as far advanced with dealing with this issue as Erie County is. And that's because we all came together to address the issue. If the city went and did it on its own, and we tried to do it on our own, which is what would have happened in the past, nothing would get accomplished because the city would address its issues. We'd be able to limited address our issues in the county on behalf of Cheektowaga or Tonawanda, but we'd never be able to address the root problem. But by working together as a group, we can do that now. And I'll give you an example. 64% of the alleged problem distressed properties in Erie County reside in the city of Buffalo, but they only hold 11% of the assessed value of distressed properties. The vast majority of distressed properties that have any type of value to them are in the towns. That's why we needed to fix this problem working together. And that's why I'm very pleased that we were not only able to get this done in my first year, but we are much further advanced than any other community across New York State. And New York is taking notice of that. The other counties are taking notice of that. They're coming to here to say, you are in the lead. How can we do this? And we'll give them a few of our secrets. We're not going to give everything away. But we do want to let them know that we're at the lead because we, by working together, know how to address these problems. So that's an example of where by partnering with your friends in government, regardless of what side they are in the political aisle, you can achieve things for the greater community. We're working on behalf of the Regional Economic Development Council with regards to the Buffalo Billion that the governor's talked about, to invest $1 billion in this community over the next 10 years. The first $100 million of that is in the state budget. This is going to be a wonderful thing for the entire community, because this money is going to be spread across the entire county to bring in new workers, to bring in new jobs, to find the industries of tomorrow, so that we don't have to talk about losing population and a losing job base, but creating an increasing job base. I'm working on behalf of the county in conjunction with various administrative agencies and the state to make that happen. It is going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight, because you just don't change a government and you don't change an economy overnight, but it is happening, and I'm proud to be a part of it. We're going to capitalize on the strategic resources that we have. As Deborah noted, I am focusing our economic development issues on Canada. The United States' #1 trading partner is Canada. Its economic hub is Toronto. That's 90 minutes away down the QEW. But we have not focused in on it in the past. It might as well be now 9,000 miles away. Why didn't we do it? I don't know. You'll have to ask those prior elected officials why, instead of going out to this incredible economy and trying to bring some of that business here, they squabbled over the scraps that we had in this area for the longest time. I'm not trying to steal a Canadian business and having it move in the United States. What I want is these thriving Canadian businesses, if they're going to create American subsidiaries, instead of going to Texas, Ohio, Florida, Tennessee, they should be here. They could have a breakfast meeting at their office in Toronto. They could have a lunch meeting at their office in Buffalo, their American subsidiary, and then they can be back in Toronto in the evening for a Maple Leafs game if this lockout ever ends. That's what we're doing. We've already had a couple big victories. Outfront Portable Solutions is a Canadian company that had no interest in this area. We talked to them through the Buffalo Niagara Enterprise. Not only did they came in, they bought a business that was about to go bankrupt here, one of their competitors, and they're keeping those jobs alive, and they're investing, and they're going to be creating new jobs in the next year. We're dealing with an entity called Welded Tube of Canada, which is purchasing 100 acres of land on the Bethlehem Steel site. It's going to be the largest purchase of any land on the Bethlehem Steel site. They're going to create these very large, basically tubes that they make right now in Canada, but their clients, their customers, want to see made in the USA on that product. They could go anywhere in the United States. They're choosing here. And then they're choosing here because of the great workforce we have and the ability to tailor these type of deals now so that they can actually make money, and we can compete against the Floridas, the Texases, and the Tennessees. It hadn't happened in the past, but it is happening in my administration, and it's going to continue to happen. I want us to be the American subsidiary headquarters for the major Canadian corporations. As I say, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think if we continue to focus on it, it is going to make a difference. And one of my top economic development individuals right now is in Hamilton making presentations on this issue as we speak. That's what we have to do. We need to work very hard to create a better economic development system that works for all. That's why I'm working with Mary and others to create a better industrial development agency system. There are 6 IDAs in this county. The Erie County Industrial Development Agency, and then 5 others that represent specific towns. Amherst, Clarence, Lancaster, Hamburg, and Concord. Cheektowaga doesn't have one, but the town of Concord, where Springville is, does. That makes no sense. It truthfully makes no sense to have 6 IDAs competing against each other for the same few jobs when the entire city of New York has one. New York City represents in total about 12 million people. We as a county have 920,000. We have 6 IDAs, they have 1. Why is that? You'll have to talk about why it happened in the past, but our goal is to create a better system going forward. We don't need to eliminate those IDAs, but what we can do is create a system in which if they're going to give away the tax breaks and tax money for everyone else from outside of their town, well, they should get approval from the general region before they do that. Premier Liquor basically moved a mile from Kenmore to Amherst. You paid for it in the town of Cheektowaga, because what they gave away as part of that deal was not only property taxes from the town of Amherst, but sales tax breaks. And where does the sales tax break come from? The county. And what does the county do with the sales taxes that it receives? It shares it with every municipality in the county, the cities, the towns, the villages, and the school districts. So the school districts in the town of Cheektowaga, the town of Cheektowaga, and the village of Depew and Sloan, the villages, those two, I think there's only 2 villages. Actually, Williamsville is partially in Cheektowaga, just a tiny bit. But those villages in the town of Cheektowaga also paid for the tax breaks to move Premier Liquor basically a mile. And that happens in almost every deal across Erie County, as these smaller IDAs are just giving away tax incentives left and right. We need to stop that. We need to create a unified system that works for all of us, and that's what we're working on with legislation right now in Albany. It is being fought by the IDAs and the towns. All the other supervisors are on board, Democrat and Republican. They understand that this is a big problem that needs to be addressed. But of course, the IDAs and their towns don't want to basically give up their little kingdoms that they have. They only make money by doing deals. And they only pay their salaries by doing deals. And the deals that they're doing are not generating new businesses from outside this area. They're stealing businesses from one part of the county to the next. That's wrong, it needs to stop. And that's one of the things we're working on in my administration. I think we're going to get it done, it's just going to take some time. It doesn't happen overnight. Changing a failed system, a dysfunctional system that we've had for 40 to 50 years doesn't happen in one day. But it can happen if we have good people working hard to make that happen. And I ask each and every one of you for your support. As a business owner, a business leader of this community, you don't want to see one of the other towns have an economic advantage over you. You want to have a fair system in which everyone has the same, starting from the same level playing field. We don't have a level playing field now. If we pass this legislation in Albany, it will be a level playing field. And that's why we're working to get that done. Right now I'm in the process of putting together our budget for 2013. As I said, it's about a $1.5 billion budget. We share of that, $300 million in sales tax, but $1.2 billion provides the services on behalf of Erie County. I'm working to get that done. We're going to release it by October 15th, the deadline under the charter, and it's going to be a fair budget that ensures that it protects the service that the public wants and ensures going forward that we have the ability to pay for it as well. One final thing, because everyone asked me, yes, the Bills Lease, the negotiations are continuing. We did not reach the aggressive timeline that I wanted. I wanted to get this done by the end of this year. I wanted to have an MOU in place where the major terms were done by training camp. It didn't happen. If you've seen me on TV holding the current lease, it's about that thick. It's actually 35 separate documents that make the current lease. And the one agreement that we do have between the Bills, the state, and ourselves is that that document is being revised for the new lease. Nothing is 100% complete until, or no one item is 100% agreed to until the whole agreement is agreed to. Now that doesn't mean we're constantly going back and changing things we're agreeing to, but there's so many things that we have to deal with, including the cost associated with who's going to pay for this, that it's just taking some time. I feel confident we are going to get a lease done, we are going to keep the Bills in this town. It's just not something that happened on the timeline that I was hoping for, and we're going to continue to work towards that. We have 3 parties. This is just not the county and the Buffalo Bills, it's the county, New York State, and the Buffalo Bills negotiating, and we're working towards it, and I hope to get it done as soon as we can. I'm still hopeful we'll be able to get something done by the end of the year, but even if we did, we've sort of missed a timeline to get it in front of the NFL and have the owners approve it until next March. So while we may get the major negotiations done by the end of this year, we still are not going to have a signed, sealed, and delivered lease until probably next year anyway.